Good evening, guys. Welcome to our beginning modern calligraphy. We're going to go over our basic strokes, go over our basic package, and after that, we're just going to talk a little bit of enveloping addresses. This is, of course, our beginner class, so hopefully next week I can go more in depth with addressing envelopes and kind of go over some more ideas and other options you can do with addressing envelopes. But for now, let's go ahead and get started with our basic packet. I'm going to be using the Tombow Furunosku pens. I'll have a micron pen nearby. I also have a green one. And also we will be going over, before envelopes are, let's see, December and the letter, so it's letter I actually. So I and the month December. Let's go and get started. Okay, so modern calligraphy, some words of encouragement. Anyone can hand letter as long as you're willing to practice. Think of lettering as drawing shapes. Lettering is not cursive. While doing this new skill, go slow and controlled. Don't worry about shakiness. In the beginning, focus on each stroke and understand how each letter form is created. Okay, let's go ahead and start on our warm-up. And I'm going to do a Crayola today just to warm up with the Crayola and show you how you do not have to have a flexible pen every time you're practicing. So we're going to begin with our upstroke. Starts from the bottom up using the tip of your pen with light pressure. Downstroke from the top down, full pressure. And in this case with Crayola, you would want to turn your marker to the side and use the side of the pen for your thicker strokes. Overturn stroke, bottom left with the tip of your pen over. Once you go over, you apply full pressure. Underturn stroke, top left, starts with full pressure and release before the bottom and back up using the tip into a light upstroke. Compound curve, bottom left, light pressure, apply pressure once you're over, release pressure before the bottom, back up with light pressure. Oval, start at 10 o'clock and you want to go clockwise. Light pressure over, full pressure, release before the bottom and touch where you started. Reverse oval, start at 2 o'clock, counterclockwise, backwards, and close. There we go. Let me see if I'm in frame. Okay. Ascending loop starts in the middle with light pressure, backwards, counterclockwise, back down into full pressure and pass the area you started. Middle, backwards, full pressure down. Descending loop starts like a downstroke, full pressure down, backwards, back up with light pressure and stop halfway. Okay, so that is our basic strokes. we have on page 3, I like to say, use this as a reference anytime you're going to sit down and practice. Have this near you just to remind you kind of what your basic strokes are, where if you want to just do your alphabet, where you're going to lift your pen in between every stroke, and an alphabet breakdown. I thought it'd be fun today if we probably trace over. I really kind of skip over this in most of my classes, but thought I'd try something different, and we can go over our alphabet and practice lifting our pen in between every stroke. You can use 2 different markers, but in this case, I'm just going to use one color. And again, I just want to show you how. So again, this area is a good practice to teach you how to lift your pen in between every stroke. So I hope that makes sense. Ashley, is the lighting okay?
It's a little hard to see. It's not totally, you can see it, but not.
So is it washed out? Is it too
bright? A little
bright?
bit, yes.
Okay, okay. Let me fix it. I'm gonna do this. Let me know when you kind of feel. How about that? Now too much shadow? How's that? Oh, too much shadow. Sorry, guys. Let me see. Does that work, or it's still washed out?
I can see it. Can everybody else? Or
because I mean, I could see it good on my side. I just want to make sure it's okay for the screen. It was a little better this way. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, excuse me. I might sneeze. My nose is itchy. Okay, so let's practice lifting our pen. So every time, and when I say lift our pen, let's literally remove our pen from the whole area and just roll your wrist back this way. So oval, lift up, come back down, up. So every time the color changes, oh, that's not doing good. Let me do black. That's better. So one thing with advancing in calligraphy, and you'll see me use it in our worksheets, we learn how to combine multiple strokes. So I apologize if I confuse you sometimes, but when it comes to the worksheets, it's a little easier for me to put the combinations together, but also I want to show you that it does work that way once you advance, but it's always good to start this route right here. So just because I'm combining doesn't mean you have to, and don't hesitate to just lift your pen after every stroke, and it definitely helps with spacing. Because if you try to combine too many at one time, then it looks far from calligraphy. Do you see there? So in here, when I was trying to connect my M and N, here I'm teaching myself how to lift my pen, but you can see right here how it's not a smooth flow. So that's what I mean. Sometimes you teach yourself how to connect for reasons like this that you want to avoid. And again, always practice your entrance and exit strokes. That will help with spacing and get you ready for the next letter. Letter R and S is always usually one stroke, just so that it can have a smooth transition. This little guy right here, is, believe it or not, has a name, and it's called a comma dot. I used to teach that at the beginning, but I don't really see it necessary. I wanted to really focus on our basic strokes. But if you want, you can always practice this little guy, and he just kind of like a little check mark. Full pressure and then release real quick, like a check mark, because it is used in a couple strokes. The X, don't cross your X from the top down. You always want to cross your X from the bottom up, because it's always a guarantee to be a thin line using the tip of your pen. Because if you go top down, you're going to naturally want to apply pressure. Letter Z is a double stroke always. And there we have it. Nice little alphabet warm up. Our alphabet breakdown, pretty self-explanatory. Here we have, before the equals is every stroke that forms each letter. And in this case, I did say there's 4 strokes in the letter F, but when writing the letter F, again, this is just more for technical terms, but then when you're writing a sentence, more than likely writing the letter F in one stroke is going to be more clean. Is there any specific letters that anybody might want me to go over? Okay, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, our brush lettering basics. No, I really don't need that right now. Okay, so my top 4 brush lettering basic tips. Every time you apply heavy pressure, the stroke is going toward your body. It's going to always be a heavy pressure. And every time it goes up away from your body, it's going to be a light, thin stroke. Angle your pen at a 45-degree angle, not in an up and down motion. And 2 and 4 actually go better together. So while you're holding your pen at a 45-degree angle, try holding your pen in the middle of the barrel, and that will help your pen flex when you're going on your downstrokes. And do not hesitate to apply pressure on these flexible tips, because this is what they're made for, to apply pressure and get that thick downstroke. And always remember to lift your pen right before the bottom to avoid too much stroke here, or what we call a soggy bottom. So right around this area, you want to start telling yourself, that your pen's going to go more lighter. And then you come back up. Faux calligraphy we have here. So learning faux calligraphy will help you with understanding the thick and thin strokes. You can use any non-flexible pen to imitate the look of calligraphy. So in this case, this is just a regular felt pen. You can go as simple as using a regular pen or even just a pencil. So let's use the pencil here. Super simple. Write the words high. And every time you're writing the strokes, you want to keep your calligraphy strokes in mind. There's never a right side or left side. It's just always depending on the spacing, whatever side that the stroke fits on. And faux calligraphy is also good to add doodles and multicolor, or just leave open like that if that's the look you want to go for. Add a little color there. Or of course, when you're in a situation where you just don't have a flexible pen, you're trying to create the look of calligraphy, and that's when it's good to know and practice this technique. But definitely a good technique to understand the thick and thins of basic calligraphy, basic strokes. Alphabet drills. Okay, alphabet drills is fun. So this is basically, it's just a blank sheet so that you can either use tracing paper or fill up this page specifically. But pretty much, I guess we could call it a little challenge. Every month, every week, try practicing letter combinations. So let's start with a non-flexible pen and just practicing your strokes. Could do faux calligraphy. You can do a flexible tip. And maybe if you want to just fill up the line using the same AA combination. When I kind of thought of this in my head, what I did is I drew a line in the middle and I went from AA probably 3 or 4 times, just depending on what pens I was using, and then continued over here with AB. Or you can just fill up the whole entire row using the same type of pen. Or here, switch your pen after every line and start with AA all the way to the letter Z. You can even practice with a pencil instead of doing faux calligraphy, since it is a non-flexible tip. Use the light and dark, the lightness of a pen can give and the darkness. So what I mean is on light upstrokes, use light pressure, and dark dark strokes on your downstrokes, like that. Kind of hard to see, but when you're doing it in person, let me get maybe a not so sharp pen, maybe a more used pen can do the trick. This is a very good technique when you're applying pressure to get those dark strokes. Will definitely help you learn how to use a flexible pen. Okay, this is just an idea of how you would use page 5 alphabet drills. Get creative and use whatever you have at home. Make copies, or again, like I said, use a tracing paper or just right here directly on page 5. I might as well just go through the whole package because I know everybody has come to my class, so I'll just finish the packet now and then move on to projects. Guidelines. In the beginning, you're really not going to focus too much on the names of the lines. This is just something good to know if you're going to get more deep into calligraphy. One, you're going to see videos and tutorials, and they might be referring to the lines as this, but also just in general, just to know what every line has a name. So our ascender line, of course, it's self-explanatory for our ascender height strokes, and then our descender line down below. Every main area. So for example, here's a good one. This is considered our X height here, descending and ascending. You can practice with any multiple types of paper. Our first line here is our basic school grade 2-line paper. I have most of my packet this way just so that all these lines and slants don't get too confusing. You can practice with the slanted grid paper. Here we have a large slanted grid paper. If you can't print any of those or get a book with any of those lines, you can use basic line paper and create your own guidelines. You can use one line. If you're going to use a bigger pen, you can use up to 3 lines. But depending on how many lines you use for the X height, that's how many lines you're going to go up for ascending and down for descending. So 3 lines for X height, it would be 3 lines down and 3 lines up. And just create some invisible guidelines, or maybe a guideline off to the left side and follow it that way, or just fill up the whole entire line. And the same thing goes for grid paper. You can get a packet of grid paper and create some guidelines for yourself. It's a good way to keep you lined up and your muscle memory stay straight when writing your strokes out. This page is just, of course, our tips. You can go ahead and read over that later. We have our supply recommendations. These categories are specific brands and types of items that we would recommend for beginners. This was created a while back. Me and Debbie put it together, and I'm sure now there's so many more brands and items that you can find. Calligraphy has blown up so much. And then this is just another guide for you to look over, just use with tracing paper. We have our uppercase / copper plate lettering above, and then your lowercase alphabet. Use it as a guide if you're gonna use uppercase, because for the most part, we rarely use uppercases with modern calligraphy. We usually just bounce right into lowercase for whatever reason. But just on the packet, does anybody have any questions before we move on to our worksheet? Okay. All right, so today we have the letter I, Merry Christmas, and the word December. These eyes are funny. They look like the letter J to me, but this is how the guide taught me, so I'm going to go with it. So we have our main stem, universal line of beauty. And then this here is, I want to say it's just a oval hook, or something that has to do with the hook. But so let's start off with the main stem, go past the descending loop, and see with uppercase copper plate, it's always usually, of course, bigger than your X height. So you always see me go past the descending line when I'm talking about this uppercase. So with the second stroke, what you wanted to do is actually create a little ring here. So that's the reason you have a little dip here, and then you go back up and form a big oval. So let's combine the two. Hook it up, over, and go past the dotted line. So it's like a big letter C, but again, it starts with a little swirl at the beginning. And so here with this first one, I actually went straight up and down, but you want to do it more of an angle. So a swirl to create a loop, and then a huge C, reverse oval. Try slanting it more. See, that's too big. So I guess instead of going too far this way, just start with the little hook here. No, still big. I guess you just straight down. It just gets bigger and bigger. Oh, there we go. So then don't go too much down on this loop. I was going way too far down here. So actually just stay right here and just create a baby loop instead of dropping it so far down. There we go. Something like that. I hope that helps. Okay, moving on. Lowercase letter I. Two strokes, entrance stroke, underhand turn, dotted. Simple. And then just to get creative with the bounce, go below the descending line. and give it a hook at the end and remove the entrance stroke. There we go. Add a little bounce to it. Letter I in Faux Calligraphy, an open Faux Calligraphy. To me, it's just a big letter L. Super simple, even looks like our basic cursive. But of course, just adding a second line to the downstrokes. Letter I, same thing, super simple, not anything too crazy like our other letters that we've done in the past. Go. Let's fill this one in for fun. There we go. Let's practice our Merry Christmas. Wow, that was pretty complicated. If it's possible, try doing all these strokes at once. I had to lift my pen a couple of times. There we go. Merry Christmas. Okay, next we have December. Let's go ahead and write it out. And then December broken down into every stroke. Or I should say every time the pen should be lifted, because there's some combinations here. And then another tip I always like to repeat is do not hesitate to go back and add a second line if you're not satisfied with the thickness that you got the first time. It's all about drawing shapes. Just like that. Let's do a little bounce to December. So I actually started the second stroke to get that loop first. And went back to the first stroke. Bounce to C. And of course, with bounce, you want to start with your base word and then sketch out where the bounce might look even every two strokes. Okay, so with December in Faux Calligraphy, start with the main stroke and actually finish the second stroke right away. do the middle, skip over, and then loop it around. When you come here, avoid crossing through your open space, and then connect the loop at the bottom. And then add a downstroke there. And there's nothing wrong with the lines going through your strokes. I just thought it'd be fun to practice with the open space just in case you wanted to add some doodles to the middle, and it's good practice. So when you're ready to do a project like that, but I've definitely seen a lot of times that they just cross right through their strokes and leave it that way. So it's a personal preference. That's the cool thing about our modern calligraphy. There's not really any rules. You make it your own, unique. Let's do December in an extended form. The DE really isn't too extended. I think when I started writing it, I forgot. Oh, what am I doing? Too much. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay, and some fun flourishes here on December. Our basic letter D. Just like the Faux Calligraphy D. M has a flourish at the bottom. A little flourish on the top. A little flourish back here. Same thing with bounce. When you are playing with flourishes, it's always good to just go back to your base height, use a pencil, and just sketch out the areas that you want to see. Let me get just use this green pen, but pretty much kind of just see where you want to add your bounce. So for example, let's add our bounce up here, drop this low, drop this C, or if we're doing a flourish, I'm gonna do here. And of course you'd be using a pencil, so then you kind of put it together and you say, oh, I don't like the way that looks, and you erase it. But so whenever I say start at your base word, start here, and then just add flourishes and bounce to where you like it, and then erase. And you could write right over it and trace from there. But in my case, when I was creating this, I just had a huge sketch page and kind of figured it out, and then I went back and wrote this side by side. But that's pretty much that on the practice sheet. Do I have any questions before I move on? Any questions in the chat? I don't think I see any. Okay. So let's go ahead and did y'all have anything for envelopes today? Do y'all have any blank envelopes, or Ashley, were y'all able to hand any out with the packets? Kind of curious to know what supplies you guys are gonna work with, or were y'all just gonna watch me work? Does anybody have envelopes with them? Or we're just gonna take some notes? Okay, I can go ahead and move on. So, this was kind of hard to plan because since this is our beginning calligraphy class, I didn't want to make it too complicated, but just touch base with some pointers when it comes to addressing envelopes. I have an envelope here. Of course, we have our pencil, we want a ruler, and first off, again, this is going to be super basic, so with some pointers, but we can get more advanced in next week's class. And once you get more advanced, of course, you want to check with your post office to see if there's any limitations if you do plan to fill up a whole entire space with a full calligraphy, design stuff we see on Pinterest. Sometimes they might not allow it, but from the research I've done, every post office is different because it depends on the handlers and the people that are gonna get it at our main post office and read it. So that's kind of what I've understood. Make it legible, of course, some clean calligraphy, and sometimes using not writing the address in block lettering. I'm sorry, not you writing it in calligraphy and using block lettering instead is just a second verification, just in case they can't read the name at the top. But let me go ahead and move on. So you can start super basic, kind of find your center. So in this case, I have, let's see, so 4 and it's right below half. I have my half here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's go with what would be the half? Well, I guess it's not necessary to, oh, right there. I can even use the blocks on the side. What about there? Every envelope is different. So just finding the center mark. Or even going, I mean, of course you wouldn't want to crease it, but maybe a light crease to find the center. And this isn't the only way I'm going to show you. I'm actually going to show you a couple of ways to get your line straight. This is just super basic, just if you don't want to take the next steps or if you don't have them available. But super simple, finding the center. You, of course, want to put the calligraphy name here on the main line. And then, so maybe in this case, using a line sheet behind you. So see how I have my dots on each, my squares on each side. I would use that as a guideline just to keep my address straight. And it's always good to, you can also use a pencil with enveloping. Just don't apply too much pressure. So that you can erase it. Okay, so this is just one example. And so when it comes to descenders and interfering with the address, you have three options. You can do a center address, a left address, or a right address. So in this situation, I would definitely work with a left address. And like I mentioned before, we want to do some block lettering just so that it's more legible. And maybe all capital, all caps. And you can definitely put the zip code here. Or let's start off here and then I'll show you my other options for a zip code. Just writing it out there. And then super simple, sketch it out. Go back over and trace with a flexible pen once you get everything where you want it. But just right off the bat, super simple, center your main name, figure out where a descender might interfere, and that's where you're going to decide where you want your address. Of course, that's not the most ideal way. We want more clean and crisper lines. So there are two options. You can get yourself a laser level. This one's just from Home Depot. I'm going to turn it on. It might be kind of noisy, but I hope you can kind of get the right idea. It makes that funny noise because it actually has a suction. So once you push down on it, it starts to suck. This is actually pretty annoying. I liked it at the beginning, but honestly, nowadays, if you do truly get into an envelope addressing, they have some clipboards with lasers on them and maybe some less noisy lasers. That's where we'd have to look at reviews. So here in this situation, I'm actually going to use the lines on my board. If not, getting some guidelines and taping it this to using washing tape. So like in this, for example, tape it down here, getting a laser level. And like I said, I'm going to use these lines. Let me go this way. Nope. And once I get it to where I want it, right there, and this level is actually going out, so you can barely see it. You can't see it, but I can barely see it. But let's see. Well, that didn't work as planned, but I really hope you get the right idea. I just wanted to show you that using a laser is definitely a big help to avoid writing, sketching out any lines. But this is what I mainly wanted to show you guys, is that there are some guidelines, and I will send the link to Ashley to help you. But what I find hard with these guidelines is, I guess, the cutting process. So here's what you have to do is you print out this page with 2 different guidelines. You have to get an X-Acto knife and what made it easy for me was to get a ruler and line it up against every single line. I mean, I guess this is worth it if you're going to do a bunch of envelopes for an event. But just for, I mean, if you do, I mean, if it's a few just for the holidays, I mean, this is a good option as well. And like I said, I'll forward the link to Ashley where you can get this from. But what happens is you just have to be very accurate, because if you're not, then your lines start to come out crooked. And that's what happened here. So I had to go back and kind of make them straight. And that's not it. If you using just a flexible printer paper is not ideal. I can try using it now, but I just wanted to move forward and show you a better option. So I would suggest getting some cardstock and tracing this over the cardstock, and that too becomes complicated. But if you have a printer that accepts cardstock, you can avoid all these steps and just jump right into carving out the lines. So let's go ahead and use this step just so we could continue and show you how to use this. And I really like this. It has a corkscrew backing, so every time I use it, it actually helps all my items stay in place. I'm gonna get some tape. help me keep this in place. I'm having difficulties here with the tape. There, I got it. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. I guess what we can do is actually go right over these lines with the X-Acto knife. I didn't think of that. Instead of actually tracing it, because I actually attempted to use a pencil, and these lines in between just moved so much that it was not an ideal process. But I think this would definitely work better if we can get it ran through a printer that accepts thick paper. And I think that's when these guidelines work the best. Ashley,
Yes.
do you think there's any way we can have these printed on cardstock for next week's class?
Yeah, I can see what I can do and see if I can print them for you.
And have,
Mhm.
send an email, have them
Oh,
pick
ready
it
for
up.
yeah.
Yeah. And hopefully we can have them be prepared with this.
Yeah.
I just didn't think it was going to be these many steps.
Okay.
I planned
Yeah, I can see what
I planned this class almost over 3 months ago and didn't realize how many steps it had. I'm sorry, guys. I think that would definitely help. And then maybe I did get these envelopes from the library, so maybe we can figure out how we can hand out a couple. Like I said, getting it written on cardstock might be a little bit more better so that we can avoid that second step. That first step, actually. Let's see, let's use a So once you finally get it on cardstock, let's see. I wonder what's an alternative to an X-Acto knife. Like if we were to hand these out, what would, just so I could mention it to everybody as we're doing, I don't know. I guess that's something we should research. Okay. So we have we want to sketch it out. For the top line, we would want to sketch out just a line, because of course it's going to be more of a flourish calligraphy. I wrote down some names. Let me see which one. Let's do a centered name. Let's do a centered address. So, okay, let's see. It would be good if that line was there. Let's do this. Right there. Okay. Top line, skip, jump down to the middle. And what you want to do, here's another couple of pointers, is whenever you're writing a centered address, it would probably be best to start with the address, the name of the street first, and then add the letters. The numbers. And then kind of figure out right off the bat. Let me get one of these. Where the center is. So in this case, I would say the P and the E might be the center for the whole address. So we can go start with the letter E. Oh, I'm not good at block lettering. That's another type of lettering that takes some practice, block lettering. And then let's say okay, and then another tip when it comes to writing the zip code, you want to do the zip code, every other letters, every other number. So the first letter, the first number, the third number, and the fifth number first. So the first number at the front, the third letter in the center, and the last, number at the end, so that you can eyeball the center. Oh, did that wrong. There we go. There we go. So then we have a block address there. And then we can make the name. Let's go with Rose. Okay. And then you can lightly sketch it. Use your flexible pen. The more flexible one. The green. I like the green. It has more of a flex, so it makes all my downstrokes thicker The green barrel is the soft tips. There we go. And then with the address, using a felt tip pen, just tracing over your pencil. Maybe adding a little dot in between. And then going back over to erase any pencil marking. And there we have it. Thank you for joining calligraphy class.